in the form of the fundamental conservation challenge has been these linear infrastructures in the form of these hydroelectric projects, dams and canals and the highways. And within this chunk of the landscape, you can actually see that there are 10 major hydroelectric projects, including the Sholiyar hydroelectric project and the infamous Mullaperiyar Dam and so on. This is all falling within the Anamalais landscape. And when it comes to roads and highways passing through this landscape, there are 13 highways, 13 major highways, of which 3 are national highways: National Highway 544, 85 and 185, that actually pass through the Anamalais landscape, cutting it at different points, and has also unfortunately made it hub of a large number of roadkills and so on, challenging amphibian and reptile community conservation. But as I said, when we talk about the conservation challenges of this landscape, I can just go on and about various of these aspects, but I'm going to just restrict myself to just one aspect of it, which is that of habitat degradation and habitat destruction. And the Anamalais was largely opened up for commercial plantations in the mid to late 1800s. This was about between 1860 to 1880, where the landscape was extensively surveyed as a potential or a suitable cultivation area for tea by the British. And vast extents of these landscapes, this landscape was opened up for tea cultivation. And as a result, what happened was this once fairly well-connected landscape was then made into these disjunct habitats, wherein you have these interspersed rainforest fragments, in some sense acting as islands within a large sea of tea, coffee, and cardamom plantations. This in turn has actually coerced elephants and various other species to interact with people on a fairly regular basis, primarily elephants. Elephants, gaur and leopards. Several other species, of course, we do see them, but what evidently we witness are the 3 large and potentially dangerous animals: the elephant, gaur, and leopards. And this eventually, of course, because the larger perception is also that the mere presence of a potentially large wildlife in human-dominated landscapes equates to conflict, which may not necessarily be the case always. And it eventually culminates in these species getting termed as rogues and marauders and in the case of carnivores, of course, it's man-eaters and so on. But what we need to also understand is that the fact that I actually emphasized the title of this talk as Lessons from the Anamalais is because Anamalais over the years has been a poster landscape where people through community-based conservation methods and participatory conservation rather have been able to move from internecine conflicts to coexistence. And I'll get to that in a bit, but most importantly, I think it was this understanding and acknowledgement that, where people perceive animals to be, when you look at the larger perception, where people perceive animals to be, they're either in protected areas. I mean, they have to be in protected areas. That's the larger perception. But where animals actually are, you can see them, they are within protected areas. They're also at the forest plantation interfaces, and they are in strictly human use landscapes, as you saw in the previous slide, for instance. Now, when you have such large animals in human use areas, you're also bound to have some level of losses in the form of property damages, crop damages, and episodic human casualties. But again, like I said, with vast extents of habitats getting fragmented, it is in some sense inevitable that these animals are going to be at the fringes or within human use landscapes. And we need to have more strategic planning towards making this negative interaction to what we could possibly call as coexistence. In this landscape, how it by and large worked is that elephants use this. So this is with particular focus to the 220 square kilometer plantation landscape within the Anamalais called the Valparai Plateau, where elephants are tracked on a fairly daily, a fairly regular basis where tracking teams go out on a daily basis, track individuals and herds that have been identified over the past close to 25 years. And this is part of a long-term monitoring that the Nature Conservation Foundation has been running in the Anamalais landscape. And this was the same population that I got to study for about 8 years in this landscape. Now, how this technique has proven successful in managing conflict is that these animals that are tracked on a daily basis, their locations are then further fed into a master database. And through years of tracking these animals, now we know that their daily movement rates are approximately between 2 to 3 kilometers. So a 2-kilometer radius is drawn from the live locations of all these individuals / herds found within these areas, and messages are sent out. And I'm sure many of you are already aware of this whole technique happening there. But the fact that this has been successful is because the local communities have really taken this up and contributed towards its sustenance by running several of these measures. As you can see below, there is an alert light which indicates that there are elephants within 2-kilometer radius of that particular alert light. And over the years, from its initiation stage in 2011, over the past 10 to 12 years, the major change that has actually happened is in terms of the operations that have happened, operations of these mitigation measures, wherein people have now completely taken over running these alert lights, for instance. So in most landscapes where you can see conflict being managed at a particular level or is actually coming down, the fundamental learning is that this has been through community-based participatory measures. And this is true for various other landscapes or other countries, for instance, in Sri Lanka, where village or paddy field fences built through fence monitoring, village level monitoring committees have proven to be successful in mitigating conflicts. Now, taking a step backwards and looking at human-wildlife conflict as a larger picture, and at the Friends of Elephants, this is not new to any of you. I don't need to get into the details of any of these. We have several physical physical or reactive conflict mitigation measures, ranging from the elephant-proof fences to the fences, captures, drives, and translocations. Now, the second part of what I wanted to emphasize on in my 10 to 15-minute briefing before we get into this conversation was how in various instances, capture of elephants becomes inevitable. There are several instances where you would have repeated human casualties, or for instance, elephants staying within habitations and causing repeated damages. And this could be in terms of crop loss or property loss or property damages. And in such inevitable situations, one is left with no other choice but to remove this animal. And very often what happens is that when animals are captured and translocated elsewhere, I would like to recall Dr. Fernando from Sri Lanka's very famous quote that when you're translocating an elephant, you're not only translocating the animal, but also translocating the problem. And this has been fairly true, particularly in the context of the Anamalais. And in our conversation, we would probably try and get into the details of this. But just to give a brief overview, in 1987, and 2017 and 2019, we have had 3 instances where conflict animals from elsewhere were released in the Anamalais, considering Anamalais as a potential rehabilitation landscape. And in all these 3 instances, these animals ventured out further, getting into more conflict with people and eventually getting recaptured and taken into captivity. Now, the other learning in this context is also that while the Anamalais is the second largest contiguous Asian elephant population across their range, it is also embedded with several, like I mentioned earlier, several anthropogenic elements within. And these are mostly in the form of settlements, plantations, habitations, hydroelectric projects, and allied infrastructure, and so on, that the release of such large-ranging animals, particularly young individuals who tend to be exploratory in nature, may not necessarily turn out to be successful. And when there are these inevitable capture instances, when these animals are brought, taken into captivity and put into kraals, in more ways than one, the Anamalais again has proven to be an example for fairly good management of elephants. And this is also because I also, while I was doing my work on stress hormones in wild elephants, I had also collected data from the semi-free ranging elephants in the forest camp in the Anamalais, and what we found was they all seem to have comparatively low glucocorticoid concentrations, indicating that they are less stressful, and the fact that they also have a fairly good social life. They are let out for free grazing all through the day. There's almost no stall feeding, except in the case of large bulls who are tied up in the camps to avoid fighting with their wild counterparts, or in case of musk bulls who are tied up for prolonged periods of time. So in that way, the elephants in the forest camp of the Anamalais and the associated community, the Malassers, and their teachings have given us more lessons on ensuring elephant welfare in today's scenario, where welfare has been a major focus of debate, particularly when it comes to captivity. So this is just to show a picture of the elephant camp there before we move on to the conversation. But I'm just going to open the floor for this conversation and invite Dr. Manoharan and Mr. Thangaraj Panneerselvam to join me, so that we will take the conversation forward as a natural continuation of the introductory talk that I just gave. Welcome again, Sir, Dr. Manoharan and Mr. Panneerselvam. I think with that introduction, I think the stage is fairly set for what we wanted to discuss about the Anamalais. I think the best thing to do would be to actually go back to the history of Anamalais. Thangaraj sir, do you mind giving us some insights into the transformation of this landscape from what it used to be in the form of plantations, be it tea plantations, or becoming cradles of timber extraction and for the railways industry and so on, how the landscape has changed, say, in the last 150 years. Could you throw some light on that to set the context?
Good evening, all of you. What Mr. Sreedhar told, we discussed about the landscape for the past 5-6 years. So in olden days, I remember I was there. I lived in Anamalais for 50 years. Within Anamalais, that 958 square kilometer, I lived for 50 years, from 60s onwards, somewhere in 60s. I lived up to 2020. 50 years I spent in Anamalais. I learned a lot of things in Anamalais regarding this conversion part. In 60s, early 60s, lot of clearing of forest and conversion of plantations, like the tea, eucalyptus, are the major conversion in the landscape after reservation. This old expansion is that 200 square kilometer of tea and coffee cardamom cultivation in Valparai Plateau. Apart from that, in the reserve forest now it is a tiger reserve. Out of 658 square kilometer, lot of changes from 60s. 59 they start the plantation. 50 I think 57, 50, 55 there was a bifurcation of states. During that they start planting of from 57. They start they clear the deciduous forest for creation of teak plantations. The conversion of teak plantations are eucalyptus in the downhills, like in the buffer areas of Anamalais. That disturbance is very large scale. Entire now it's called Ulandi Range top slope is entirely that slope is from Chinar, Varagaliar, that portions are totally from top slope to Varagaliar. all deciduous forests are cleared, where elephants are living, where elephants are like the forest, where the elephants are feed. The entire the landscape or change to monoculture. Monoculture, that means convert to teak forest. I saw a lot of operations, including elephant capturing in 60s. In my childhood, I was there. I was with the capturing operations in 60s to 70s, up to 72. Capturing is there. Up to 79, the clearing is there. The forest felling, clear felling, and timber extraction, and fuel collections, all are there. In the downhills, they clear the dry deciduous forest and thorn shrubs. They clear all the forest and they raise a lot of eucalyptus, taticornis, and all thorny species in that slopes of Udumalpet and Amaravati side towards Chinar, from Chinar to Amaravati. All deciduous, dry deciduous forests are damaged. Almost the habitat of major habitat of elephants are disturbed. At the time, not planting, that Kumari cultivations are there. Kumari cultivation, they list out the area for Kumari cultivation, that people cultivate some ragi, then this cotton, then tapioca cultivations are there. That's what they clear all the things. They disturbed at that time. After 79, they stop all the operations, all the felling operations, and almost they do a lot of operations in the evergreen forest also. There is a slipper operation for railways. The major slipper operations in the Valparai Plateau. All the areas are damaged because of all the evergreens are damaged because of slipper operation on the day. That at that time the policy and everything is towards economy. So the forest department have to remit money in the treasury. That's why they do all the things. The policy is like that. Then the capturing also there. Capturing, they stop the capturing in 72 onwards. After 72, there is no capturing. The capturing means that pit method capturing stopped in Anamalais after 72. Then the creation of plantations also stopped in lost plantation is 79 in Anamalais. Anamalais, the lost plantation. The entire what I discussed, all the areas are damaged up to the 79. Before 79, after that, I saw a lot of improvement, lot of regeneration, lot of population of the expansion of population in that area is good. Sreedhar knows the population dynamic, the year-wise. So I saw the population study in. I joined my service in 79. From 80 onwards, I was in Anamalais. 80 from 80 to 20 was in Anamalais. So I attend all the census operations, that estimations joined. In that also we learned a lot of things. The expand the increments, especially the elephant population is, it's in the rising stages. That the same thing is in the landscape of the part of Anomalies is Parambiculam. Parambiculam also they stopped all the operations in the 80s. 86 I think last plantation. 86 only they stopped the planting operations. They stopped. From that, both the sanctuaries and national parks are It's a contiguous patch. It's a contiguous patch from Palkat Gap. Everybody knows from Palkat Gap to Kanyakumari. Nowadays, all the area except 1 or 2 divisions are territorial divisions. All the divisions are declared as sanctuary and national park tiger reserves in Tamil Nadu. So now the population is good. The population and the movement. The elephant corridor is safe now. At the same time, the conflict conflict is a little bit conflict. Olden days, a lot of conflict in 90s and 2000. Lot of conflicts in Anamalais, but they managed with the help of local peoples and local tribes, and then they from 2000 onwards, the NCF start the programs for the conflict management programs. Then they also did a good job in that they introduce a lot of things. It will help us where it's in the, they helped a lot of things in the conflict measures. After that, the conflict incidents is very low. I think in my service, the conflict is very minimum. For the past 30 years, only 3 elephants are captured in Anamalais. All 3 except 4. I think 4. Out of 4, 3 from released animals from other landscape from Coimbatore, from Kavalu. They release again. They go back to their home ranges, and then we capture the animals and keep it in our camps. That's what the landscape is. That. My experience, little bit shared with you. Sreedhar, anything more?
Thank you, sir. I think that gives an additional overview about the landscape. Now, coming specifically to the elephant conservation and welfare part, I think Anamalais was also, as we were discussing the other day, Anamalais was also the landscape where, for instance, moving from what used to be in the past, where pitfall captures were there, and then capture for commercial purposes changed to capturing for conflict purposes. So that transitioning, when that transitioning happened, I think the first use of chemical immobilization techniques also was trialed out in the Anamalais in 1987, if I'm right.
Yes, 80s, some late 80s, the first chemical immobilization during Dr. Krishnamurthy's period. Olden days, only the pit methods, lot of damages, lot of casualties, the pit methods. Everybody knows, I think. This chemical immobilization is good for the elephant population. We can conserve the population with this type of modern equipments, modern medicines.
So I'm just going to move from there to, if you can also emphasize a little bit more, if Dr. Manoharan can also step in and say the importance of Anamalais in the larger front of welfare, where what is the role of the Malasar community particularly, and how has welfare been a priority in this landscape?
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Sreedhar. My voice is audible?
Yes, sir. You're very audible. Okay.
Now, first, I would like to convey my appreciation to Friends of Elephants for having so much concern and then organizing such a wonderful webinar on elephant conservation, especially in Anamalais Tiger Reserve. And then I would like to also thank Ananya Chaudhuri for giving a nice introduction about us. Dr. Sreedhar, I just wonder at you, because I know you as a young boy student from FCRI. You have matured, mellowed, and transformed to such a beautiful scholar, and speaking widely on the landscape which is close to your heart, and where you have worked for quite a long time, more than a decade, right? More than a decade. Right now, also you are working with elephant, especially you have a great, liking for ATR. And there will be a good account of the past you got already given. My dear beloved friend, Mr. Thangaraj Panneerselvam sir, he has also given the trial of events which has taken place over 5-6 decades, wherein he has lived there as a young boy, school going boy, and then as a young forester, young officer, quite long time on various stages of the transitional period. No, despite the changes which has been recorded, where we have got good data, like from late 1800s to this part, as you have told Dr. Sreedhar, large chunk of beautiful forest. Beautiful forest in the sense, it is not the beauty. It was inhabited. It was able to inhabitate variety of animals, variety of flora, fauna. That was converted probably without knowing the impact. Probably those days, the British, when they came, probably they did not know the impact or the changes or damages which is going to happen if such forests are going to be removed for commercial cultivation. So those things took place, and probably that time they have not felt there were connectivity, there were other disturbances were not there, especially the dams. The dams were not there, the highways which you had mentioned were not there. So these animals were able to move probably from that area to another area and try to pull themselves up and try to sustain. There are also instances of capturing, so that also controlled to a certain extent the straying out probably. And then we did not have this much of interface, long and broad interface wherein humans, wildlife, and livestock interact. That type of situation was also not there. As my dear friend Thangaraj Panneerselvam sir told, conflict was never here, not much here in ATR landscape. That was quite true. Adding to it, I will say that after 1972, when the direct capturing of elephants for commercial purposes, capturing elephants for captivity was stopped, and then the conversion of pristine forest was also to certain extent or to major extent stopped. But the other developmental activity, like government was keen on developing the socio-economic status of people. So dams were constructed. The Paramikulam earlier project, ambitious project, which is very very famous and catering to the needs of almost 6-7 districts, lakhs of people, lakhs and lakhs of acres of agricultural lands. Paramikulam earlier project, which is almost covering the entire ATR landscape, and then the dams, the canals, the other facilities, the roads definitely have contributed to the the change in or the habitat disturbance. I will say habitat disturbance, and then the buffer areas, as sir was mentioning, the buffer areas where degradation is seen. The Manjambatti, which was supposed to be which is even now the national park, is seeing the degradation due to various factors. The intense agriculture practices along the fringes also, it has got its own impact on the pristine forest area backwards, and then you see degradation. So already deforestation to large extent has taken place. It is slowly coming back. It was very nice to hear from my dear friend Mr. Thangaraj Panneerselvam that the resilience is palpable and appreciable. Yes, we have seen in Varagaliar, especially Varagaliar. Those who know about ATR, if you go and see Varagaliar now, it is a good forest. But if you had seen about 4 decades ago, it was there were villages and express buses were playing between Varagaliar and Chennai. There are villages, markets, and everything. So once that was removed, the nature's resilience to today's scene is amazing actually. You could see tigers, and then the arboreal invaders like lion-tailed macaques, uh, elephants, gar, bear. So the population, you can see good population. Even camera traps, it was recorded well. And this transition from deforestation degradation, and then connectivity losses, regular routine migratory paths losses or disturbances to that, changed to good conservation plans, and then good efforts by the forest department, enforcement of law, enforcement of good enforcement by various agencies, good steps taken by the forest department, good efforts by the officers have led to the definitely have led to the resilience of the forest. Also led to the increase in the population of all the species. But increase in population has surpassed the resilience of the forest. So it is not matching. It is not matching because it is not only the elephants which are long ranging and slow pacing animals, whereas the other species, gar, is a great competitor. No? Almost, if you say elephants can eat 175 to 200 varieties of flora, more than 50% of that will be tasted by gars also, deer also. So their population is also growing, and there are also different competitors for the forages with the elephants. So that is also there. So the exact population status of other species, coexisting other species, definitely is not known. Uh, Elephants, to great extent, we can depend on the present data. Tigers, yes, definitely we can depend on the present data. And other species, probably we need to fine tune the technique, or we need to have more data to know the real status of the population, so that where we need exact intervention, to what extent we need intervention, and what are the plans we can think of. For to plan all these things, probably we need to have the base data in the form of at least the population we need to know that is there. And shall we go for the? Shall I shift to the chemical capture also, Sreedhar?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I may interrupt for
Okay.
some time. I just want to announce that anyone can come forward and ask questions because the Q&A has begun. So yeah, that was it, sir. Yeah, continue.
Thanks, Ananya. So yes, sir. I think you can also speak a little bit about that, particularly with regard to Anamalais, where we've had at least 4 odd captures in the recent past, in the last 15 years or so. So if we could just throw light on that also, then we can also start taking questions from the audience.
Yes. So I will in short, I will tell Asri enough. The trial of events on 8 years conversion has been enough told by Sreedhar and my dear friend Mr. Thangaraj Panneerselvam. So the chemical capture per se has taken, as he has told, not more than 4. As he has rightly pointed out, there were 4 captures which has involved the ATR. One is, as he told, one elephant which was captured by physical method, that is lassoing, by lassoing and tying. That elephant was captured in Jawad Hills, and it was released in ATR. As he told, it could not settle in Anamalais Tiger Reserve. It moved out of Anamalais Tiger Reserve, so it had to be captured again and put into the kraal, trained, and now kept it as a camp elephant with us in this ATR. And one elephant we captured, ATR itself, that was a female, probably first of its kind at that time in the country, I will say. It was a matriarch. It was a very challenging operation. Despite all efforts were put in, and then to retain her in the forest area, to retain the entire herd in the forest area, but all efforts like, elephant-proof trenches, solar fences, employing the kumkis to drive the elephants back to forest area and contain the forest area, employing the anti-poaching watches, our depredation squad members. We made all the efforts to contain the matriarch and the herd to keep them confined to the forest area. All the confinement and containment measures failed, and then we have to capture the matriarch. The matriarch was captured, then kept it in the camp. The other members settled. After the matriarch was captured, the other members were able to settle down. So the matriarch was the one which was leading the entire herd out of the forest area for crop riding. That was one thing. And then the other 2 captures were from Coimbatore landscape. So both the elephants were they had a problem. So they continued. Problem means they were coming out of the forest area. Both were young, actually. Both were young. That is the important point. Coimbatore, the neighboring landscape, the ATR's neighboring landscape, Coimbatore, was, the staying out is there. The landscape is facing intervention, interface, very longer interface, and then interventions are many actually, like driving and all these things. So one particular factor is why they are coming out. Not all the elephants are coming out, but few of them, a few percentage, say about 20-25% of the elephants are known to come out. Definitely are known to come out from the camera trapping and the regular recording. We know that that particular portion of elephants, they are not able to settle down despite good forages in the forest area. So all the season they're coming out of the forest area for crop raiding. Probably one reason what we can attribute, what we can think of is these when they are born young. Probably the mother was pregnant and then they were crop raiding. Probably most likely that the calf would have born close to the fringe of the forest area or outside the forest area also, and then used to come out of the forest area along with the mother. So ingraining is very fast. They are very intelligent animal, and then they learn a lot. So this learning, this behavioral aspect, which we miss many times, we just miss the behavior aspect and the orientation of these elephants over a period of time, from the birth to death. If you look at, because I had been fortunate to be with the camp elephants for more than three decades, both in Mudumalai, Anamalai, and then other parts of the country. And then I could see on different occasions when they develop particular habit, which I can see throughout their career. They may have small particular type of style of smelling at you, a particular style of behaving at you, particular style of moving this way, that is there all the time. When that is so, this behavior of coming out of the forest area also learned very fast from their younger age, which they could not resist. Young age, that is very important point. So these elephants both were young, and we could not contain them. So they were captured and released in pristine forest, Varagaliyar. Both were released in Varagaliyar area. Such a beautiful area. They have their own cousins. And at the time of their release, it was raining. Forages were full, water was full, everything was good, but still they were not able to settle down. They came out. So again, they were captured and put to crawl. Why I'm straining on these factors is now the recapturing is becoming another task. We need to use chemical capture from late 80s till now. It is being used widely throughout the country, throughout the world, of course, throughout the world. And probably in India, late 80s and early 90s, South India, especially Mudumalai, Anamalai, where very successfully they were used. We were using drugs like immobilan. We were using drugs like xylazine, ketamine, azithromycin combination. These types of drugs were used. One for knocking down. Of course, immobilan, we all know that they will knock down the animal. And with the xylazine, ketamine, azithromycin combination, it is a standing sedation. You can make the animal to stand, and then getting sedated or immobilized, you can handle the animal. So it all depends on the landscape and the terrain. You may have to choose the drug, because animal is having steep slopes. We thought that standing sedation is always good, and it was being used. And in one occasion, despite all the precaution, there are also casualties. I would like to admit that there are also casualties. In one occasion, in Valparai, I think during 2003 or 4. Am I right, Thangaraj sir? So 2003 or 4, we tried to tranquilize an elephant, and then it rolled down and fell into a
Take down.
That was not due to actually drug. Actually, see, drug, the safety margin is very high. Many times it is mistaken. Many times it is very successful operation, I will say. But the landscape, the other factors, how do they go down from a normal position? How do they go to the sedation status or tranquilization status or to immobilization status? When the status of their mind, when the status of their movement changes, sometimes the terrain do not support, and then many times, if you do not know the terrain well, there is a possibility of accidents. So that happened. But chemical capture, now we have refined drugs. Safety margin is very high, and then the reversal drugs are also there. And particular animal you can dot, as Thangaraj Panneerselvam sir was telling, it is not that something else is being captured. So you know which is the animal which is to be dealt, and then that any particular animal can be targeted and then captured at a convenient time. You can prepare the post-operative capture also. Like if you want to take it to captivity, the capturing facility, the captive facility, and then training facility, all those things can be made ready, and the animal can be targeted and captured. And then the other the post capture technique, I would like to tell you, that is very important. Anamalais ATR gives a great scope, I will say. Once these animals need captivity, needs rehabilitation, it is not only you putting them into captivity. In captivity, when then from wilderness to captivity, that transformation, the changes are to be gentle, and that wisdom, that knowledge is again, I will say, ingrained in the Malay Malasar community in Anamalais Tiger Reserve. It is also, like Sreedhar already told, I hope he told it is anthropological reserve. Anamalais Tiger Reserve is also anthropological reserve, where there are 6 tribes, native tribes are living in that area. And Malasar, excellent people, I'll tell you, you take it from me. Excellent. Malasar and Malay Malasar, they are excellent people, and their knowledge about elephants, the wisdom of understanding the small changes in them, and then befriending them, training them. Excellent, I will say. Excellent, I will say. So crawl, they will say crawl. Crawl is one of the words which is misunderstood throughout the world, probably. When you say crawl, they may say it is a torture cell, something like that. It is not like that. You have to appreciate, you have to look, especially youngsters like Ananya, and you say you're also a reporter. So you have to say it is like a cradle. You are putting a child into a cradle. Can you say that you are crushing the child? It is not like that. Cradle is a place where it will feel like, mother's womb. So something like that only. It is something like, you're putting a youngster into LKG or UKG. You can't say that, you just leave the child somewhere and the parents coming out, the child is weeping. It is not like that. So crawl is a place where you discipline, train for some time, and then taking out a reformed animal. And then after that, it enjoys the company of the same area, enjoys the company of the same people, enjoy the company of all the people who are around, enjoy the ambience also. There is always a possibility it can always go back to forest area, but still it comes back because of the love and affection and the methods being used in that area. So I would like to appreciate I would like to give all my applauds to the tribes there, the Magus and Kavadis, their ability, wisdom, knowledge in transforming a changed animal, a problematic animal, into a well-trained, dependable animal. Yeah. So
I think that also answers one question that we actually got from the audience, which is about the role of the Malasars. If I may add a couple of points to that, just to elaborate on that. One thing what I felt personally working very closely with the Malasars is also the fact that, see, fundamentally the elephant training process is dominance establishment based, and we all know about that. And there are various ways in which you do this. And in most occasions, if you look at Northeast India or Southeast Asia, where elephants are trained using open training techniques, where there is no kraal involved, elephants are tied up completely, and then they are punished until they start, listening to commands from the mahouts. And this often what happens is that this causes a lot of injuries and bruises and so on in the animals. That this could also lead to casualties, sometimes fatalities because of septicemia and so on. But the kraal, in some sense, provides that environment wherein you can nurture to the wounds. So very often what happens is that when you end up capturing conflict animals, the animals also come with other kinds of wounds like pellet wounds and so on. And the kraal gives enough space to treat and heal those wounds. And we have had similar examples in the past. And that is the kraal also provides an environment to actually nurture ailing individuals as well. So in the Anamalais particularly, I think coming back to the whole point of the Malasars, we have had at least 3 or 4 cases where animals near to dying situations were rescued, where calves have been abandoned by their mothers, attacked by stray dogs and so on, and grievously injured, or calves that have had serious oral infections and have lost the ability to feed on or drink water and so on. And so many such instances where animals with extremely poor body condition and wounds infested with maggots and so on have come to our camps. And these gentlemen, the Malasars, of course, the administrative and veterinary care is inevitable. But that said, I think the role that these gentlemen, the Malasars, have played in bringing back those individuals to life is just remarkable. And one particular instance where, in fact, even the union government was involved, the court was involved. There was a committee formed to assess the situation of the animal and even question the conditions in which the animal was kept. That the committee even highlighted the fact that had it been elsewhere, the animal would have succumbed to all the grievous injuries that the animal was suffering from, and actually was survived and came back to life because of all the care and attention that it has received. So one way compared to many other communities that I've had the chance to work with, particularly when it comes to mahots, is that the Malasars actually have their own way of bonding with the animal even before they train a wild elephant. And no exaggerations in here at all. I still remember when there was an animal that was caught because of repeated conflict instances where the animal had caused 4 or 5 human casualties in one locality, and finally the animal was captured. The very first time I went inside the kraal where there was no restraints of the animal was not tied up. I went with the Malasar boy. The boy was 20 years old then, and when I actually went inside the kraal, that was the 17th day after capture. And this is a wild animal. This is a completely wild caught animal, and absolutely and has had a history of attacking and charging at people in the past, and was captured and brought into captivity. And the fact that I should also reiterate the fact that the animal had 0 wounds on it. So one cannot also point fingers and say that, oh, the animal was punished so much that it has finally succumbed to the commands of the people. But the fact that they were able to bond with the animal with such a short span, say about 2 to 3 weeks, is to me remarkable, and something that a skill that is in some sense irreplaceable, and particularly important in today's context, where, as I mentioned earlier in my talk, that when you have such inevitable captures in the light of conflict, the fact that we also preserve and nourish such expertise and manpower is also as important as conserving such kind of traditional skills is also as important as maintaining the welfare standards of the animal, I would say.
I would like to just add one point if I have time. I think we're running out of time, I feel, but I'll just add one point. As you are telling, I just thank you, and thank you for appreciating the training, and you took risk to enter into the crawl. That is one. I'll tell you, Sreedhar, in the open technique, you start when you break the ego of the animal. You break down the animal. I won't say ego. You break down the animal. Whereas in crawl, I won't say crawl. The wooden enclosure method, it is one form of protective contact method also. It is one form of PC method also, where you win the trust and love of the animal. You feed the animal, you win the trust and love of the animal, and then you train. So that is, I think, the basic difference between open method and this wooden enclosure method. I think that you had seen. That I just wanted to say. I just wanted to add, actually. And then the modernization, as you're telling, we need to always mix the traditional thing and then the modern thing also. Now the job structure, the task structure of these elephants, when the camp was formed, late 1820s and during 1920s, the camp was formed, and then we had elephant camps in Mudumalai and Anamalais. The job structure was different. The tasks assigned to the elephants are different. And the training and the Mahut Kavari's relationship with the elephant for that purpose is different. Now it is different. It is totally different now. So according to the needs now, probably we need to have different, slightly modified way of contact between the Mahut and Kavadi and these elephants. And the timber hauling, timber operations, those things are not there. So mostly the camp elephants are used for, I will tell you, engineering purposes. Now I will say it is forest engineering purposes. Like whenever there is rain, whenever there is fallen trees and these things, we use the camp elephant to remove them, and then weeding out. So weeding and then making path. That is for fire protection, and also for perambulation. Staff also can go in the path and they can come back safely. So in such operation it is being used, and then mostly it is for mitigation purposes. Regularly they are taken out for mitigating purposes. For mitigation purposes, biological forces are the best forces. You take it from me. Biological force is the best force, and whatever mechanical force we use may not be of much use. Many times it may be counterproductive. If you use biological force and teach them how to live in the forest area, how to avoid people, how to live with the available resources, that will be the best way in the future to contain the elephants within the given resources within the given area. And then there will be a great awareness creatures. When people see, believe the big animals reaction for love and affection. As you're telling, 17th day of capture. I think you should know, the other participants who are in the forum now should know that that particular animal killed four people within 1.5 hours, 2 hours. It killed all accidental kills, but it killed four people, injured one of our forest staff also. After that, it was captured and then it was in the crawl. 17th day, Dr. Sreedhar was able to enter along with the mongoose. It was able to differentiate people. That is the point which we need to understand. So with that, I think I'll stop. I will look forward for questions. Leave it to Mr. Thangaraj Panneerselvam and Dr. Sreedhar.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Yes, please.
Yeah, I have questions. I always wonder why these elephants who are, trained in the kraal, they come back. You said it's fond of people, and the nurture what they get brings them back. My question is that the free food which they get, which is the wanting factor for them to come back, because they've been let loose in the forest? Most of the most of the department elephants, I understand, are let loose in the forest at the night for foraging. So the binding reason for them to come back is that the free food in exchange of this torture which they go through. Point number one. Point number two is, I don't believe that kraal is a nursery of nurture and care and love. I have seen it myself multiple times, and the torture which they go through. So I'm afraid I don't agree to that viewpoint. The second question is, in your landscape, like you have elephants like the Padaipa, which is free ranging. Why the department and public at large are not keen to capture this elephant and try to relocate it? Thank you.
Doctor, do you want to take these questions, or shall I go ahead?
Go ahead, Sreedhar. I will add to the points. You can go ahead. I will add to the points.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think those were fantastic questions. Really important to actually have these questions asked. One thing I think, I don't really think I agree there is a lot of torture involved in training elephants at large, which is exactly why I distinguished and said that it is pertinent only to this particular community, that I have seen that there are at least positive, embraceful changes, and I don't really agree with the fact that the aid that they receive is in return to the torture that they receive as well. And I'm absolutely with you on the fact that kraal training, kraal training is also stressful to these animals if they're not done in the right way, which is exactly why we were emphasizing on the fact that there are lessons from the Anamalais that we could, or by and large, that other communities could, or other states could take up and bring about. For instance, we had Malasar boys from the Anamalais go to states like Chhattisgarh and work there with the mahouts there to train those fellows in handling elephants that they already had in captivity, and also in some sense training the mahouts to start handling elephants without an ankush. So in fact, if you have actually visited these camps and observed, you can acknowledge the fact that the Mudamalais and the Anamalais, these are two only establishments where elephants are trained and maintained without using an ankush. Everywhere else where elephants are managed in captivity, there is an ankush involved. And coming back to the point that when our boys actually went to Chhattisgarh to train these animals, first thing that they did was to convince the other mahouts not to use ankush anymore. And one of their justifications was that as long as you have the ankush, the elephant listens to your commands because of the fear for the ankush and not really for the trust that you have built with the animal. And that's exactly what we would like to build upon, so that there's less negative interactions given a choice. So that's their take of it. And coming to your third point about Padepa, see, there's a lot of confusion with regard to Padepa, for instance. What people call as Padepa, there's two opinions there. Who people call as Padepa right now is apparently not Padepa. And the earlier Padepa had died a natural death out of old age, but the current individual is who's called as Ganeshan, but later began to be called as Padepa. But in any case, the fact that he actually manages to live amidst human habitations with minimal loss rules out any question of him to be taken into captivity. And if you remember from one of my slides, I had a photograph of an individual, an old female, who was feeding amidst houses in Valparai. And this was again an individual that earlier underwent a lot of pressure to be captured as a conflict mitigation strategy. But the fact that she was given enough space and time by the local people actually helped her in, help that particular individual and the people get enough time and space to sort of learn enough to coexist with each other. That may not necessarily be the case everywhere. There could be instances where, elephants, fundamental point here is that conflict mitigation measures, particularly reactive measures such as drives, which involves firecrackers or loud noises, sirens, kumki elephants, etc., will succeed only until the animal has some amount of fear left in it. Now, because of repeated exposure to people through tourism or through conflict or through national highways passing through these reserves and so on, if an animal ends up losing fear for humans, managing it is not going to be an easy affair. And when an elephant starts charging at people and people retreat at these mock charges, it is also sort of reinforced in the mind of the animal that this is all it takes to actually get these people away. And in some of those rare instances, people start getting killed. So when an elephant reinforces this idea that there is no need to be afraid of humans or any anthropogenic substances, then it really gets difficult to manage such individuals. And in such rare instances where an elephant that has completely lost fear for human indulges itself in repeated human casualties, the forest department is left with no other option but to remove it. Coming back to the case of Padepa, this has not really been the case there, where it has only been these sporadic instances of damaging properties or rare occasions where the animal would mock charge at people, that continuously people taking photographs or so on. But by and large, the animal has been, fingers crossed, so far been able to coexist with people with minimal losses. So I don't think the capture and taking into captivity part of Padepa should even be under consideration, taking all these factors into picture.
Yeah, I would like to just endorse all the points what Sreedhar has put in. I think that will probably has answered the questions of Mr. George sir. I also would like to add, because one more point. See, there are areas which needs refinement, which needs fine tuning. One is your wooden enclosure. It is not uniform throughout the country actually, but I am telling in respect of Anamalais Tiger Reserve. In Anamalais Tiger Reserve, that is one of the best models in the country. I will say one of the best, and that gives great hope. That is why the simple point that he is able to enter into the kraal, and the animal is every day the animal. The transformation from day one is different. The day one, The animal is free ranging and it is confined to a smaller area, right? And then that definitely will leave anybody, for that matter, any individual little stressed out. No, why I am suddenly here? Already this animal is under a different type of stress. See, coming out of the forest area, straying out, and then crop riding, and then people chasing it may not be a pleasant affair for the animal. Definitely, it undergoes a certain amount of stress, and then capturing, and then translocation, and putting into a smaller area. Definitely, but the next day, day 2, day 3, day 4, when it feels the peace, when it feels the comfort, when it feels the company of others, and they're trying to teach me something along people and the other animals, the ambience, the love and affection. See, they know love is being showered on them. They know affection is being showered on them. So they can feel they're very intelligent animals. So that is the point which need to be taken and which has to be spread. Probably these forum, these kind of youngsters taking up these matters and spreading such news throughout the country. Probably definitely you take it from me because there has to be interventions. Now only we have realized that forest is growing slowly, whereas population is growing fast. Resilience is slow than the population. It is not only the elephant, the other coexisting herbivore, the coexisting species also increasing, and we don't have a complete data. So we need to be depend on whatever is the reliable sources, what are the reliable methods, time-tested methods, till it is being refined or getting a better solutions. That I just want to add to Sreedhar. And in capturing, immediately taking to this thing is not a solution. You have to give always the opportunity for the animal. It is not regularly happening. As Sreedhar has read, I would like to just endorse his points. Thank you. Thank you.
There's one question about planting fruit trees inside the forest from Mr. Veluchami Janakaran. I think with regard to planting fruit trees inside the forest, yes, it is a fact that it is not scarcity of food that necessarily drives elephants outside forested areas. So in some sense, it's a combination of factors. There's ecological factors which could be seasonal fluctuations in nutrition availability. There could be anthropogenic factors which could be some disturbance elements inside in the form of human habitations or NTFP collection, illegal marijuana cultivation, illegal brewing. So there could be various such anthropogenic pressures, or it could even be poaching pressures. And the third thing is actually something of great importance in today's context, in today's Anthropocene, which is that of behavioral factors, where animals' behavioral modifications are also contributing to more exploratory behavior, particularly in younger individuals, and so on, which also warrants immediate long-term studies to really, to be initiated in various parts of Asian elephant ranges to try and understand how elephants and the whole point about, and this is very similar to what we were just talking about kraals, for instance, or training of elephants, for instance. It's really difficult to generalize it. I think the important point here is that you cannot generalize. These are highly idiosyncratic species, and we need to have landscape specific or site specific observations. If you ask me personally, it has to be at individual level, but very often logistically, this may be extremely challenging. But at least at landscape or site-specific level, if we have information, that would really help in conservation planning and management going forward. But I think from a more bureaucratic point of view, understanding how planting fruiting trees inside forests or such management measures mitigate conflict. Thangaraj sir, do you want to add some points on that?
Yes, no, recent days, we are not concerned about the planting of water trees or fruiting trees. We facilitate the area to convert as a water feeding areas. Like we are removing the forest department, removing all the exotics and monoculture areas. They facilitate the areas. There's plenty of food, plenty of water in the forest. No need of planting of fodder trees or fodder plants.
That's wonderful. I hate to break it because it has been naturally flowing so well that I don't think so I'm required to moderate any Q&A. Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Sanjay, I'm sorry, Mr. Sanjay. I would like to. There was one question regarding electric fences.
Yes, sir. I'm not stopping the session. It's just that's the reason I was hating to interrupt, because it's.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
The format is such that we wanted some expert to come and have a conversation with other experts, and that's fantastically working. So please go ahead and even you can take that question also about solar fencing, please.
One gentleman was asking about the electrocution. ATR, luckily, the interdepartmental cooperation in ATR is good. I'm restraining myself only to ATR. ATR definitely a model, as Mr. Thangaraj Panneerselvam, my dear friend, Mr. Thangaraj Panneerselvam has told. Conflict to larger extent is very less in ATR, thanks to NCF also, where Sreedhar was working. NCF has done a tremendous job. You take it from me, tremendous job. In the last 20 years, they were behind 2 herds of elephants, Monica and Stepier. I hope I am right, Sreedhar.
Yes, sir.
Monica and Stepier, and then in detail, they have studied the population dynamic of these 2 herds for 20 years. I don't think anywhere in the world such extensive study on a particular habitat, on particular two herds have been studied, and the population fluctuation, natality, mortality, net recruitment rate, dynamism, everything was studied in depth by the dedicated field that has given many inputs. Early warning system, we has put in a simple slide. You take it from me, that was a model to be followed throughout the world, I will say. Early warning system, very important, that to your population. Human beings are not completely programmed. Many times people, all these animals are 90% they're programmed. Human beings are not programmed enough, because everybody, your feeding habits vary, your thought process are varied, your style of living, so many things are varied. Whereas with all these animals, 99% of their behavior you can predict. They're almost programmed. So their effort to document, to create a very good, valuable, dependable data, that helped us immensely. One very important tool to understand the problem, to foresee the problem, and to mitigate. And people also cooperated because they found success in it. That is the important point. So that way, the interdepartmental cooperation. So PWD, EB, Forest Department, and the other departments like Animal Husbandry, the highways, all other departments also, they had a very good relationship. So whenever they laid the power lines, they took care wherever elephants likely to move, likely to migrate, the height was maintained. Actually, the height was maintained 20 feet and above. All along ATR, it is maintained 20 feet and above. The soil structure, the substrate were also taken into consideration so that it doesn't give up. Whereas in some area, it may sag down. Sometimes if, due to various reasons, due to natural calamities, due to, stochastic events, if it caves in, then if the lines are going to sag, there were accident deaths reported in even in Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve, in Dharmaburi Circle, where when there was sagging of line, accidental touches and then accidental the electrocutions were reported. Apart from illegal, I'm just telling these are accidental electrocutions, but which was not reported in ATR. Yeah.
Also a leading question about is the fencing is used for the corridors also?
So see, there is a legal binding, or there is a judicial order that there cannot be any barriers, physical barriers that are put across elephant corridors in obstructing their free passage. But again, that order, I think, is subject to interpretation, wherein if there are habitations, if there are houses within, then can those houses alone be fenced, and so on, are things that we need to seek further clarification for. but at least by and large, corridors cannot have these long physical barriers like railway fences or electric fences or so on.
Great.
Mr. Sanjay, I'm sorry. There was one death in 8 years. I'm sorry. There was one. I remember I did a postmortem of an elephant died due to electrocution in sagging. There was an accidental electrocution in I think Manambali range. Yeah. Okay.
So, due to the time constraint, I would like to immediately shift to the next question. But before that, I must say that, and I'm sure the audience would have also felt the same way.
Sanjay, you're muted.
Right, sorry. Yeah, I tried muting somebody else. I muted myself, it looks like. So it's almost like I've been to Anamalais because of the way you have explained the transition from several decades, put together, it must be 80, 90 years of experiences that we got in 1 hour. And that's been a very insightful, knowing various changes which has happened in the landscape, the intensity of conflict, the use of elephants then and now. So taking from there, I would like to ask this question to every panelist. I would like to ask, I do, and you all have an immense experience, so I don't want to categorize yourself into a profession, but looking at your expertise, if you would like to comment on, let's say, Dr. Sreedhar can, comment on research. Dr. Manoharan can comment on the veterinary science and the welfare, and Mr. Thangaraj can, comment on the forest officials, if I would put it that way. Looking at your experience, and I would put it into 3 buckets. Sorry, I'm explaining a lot. The first is the concerns that you faced during your working time, and the concerns were addressed successfully. What were such kind of concerns? If you can just list down maybe top 2 concerns which you handled, and over a period of time those been met. The concerns which are not handled, but you're hopeful that something will happen in the near future with the amount of research, the amount of policy changes, with the amount of medical enhancement, So what kind of such concern which you are hopeful that will be met in the future? And there are certain concerns which have been existing and those cannot be met. It's something like habitat degradation, So there is one very interesting theory by scientists from Sweden, which defines the planetary boundaries for Earth, which says that there are certain boundaries which can be still saved. One of the boundaries the scientists and the team of scientists define as a population, and the team of scientists says that we have already crossed that boundary, that it cannot be reversed or taken care of or mitigated. Whereas there are other boundaries like land and forest and nitrogen cycle, those can be still worked upon. Likewise, what are such challenges, what are such concern in your respective field which cannot be reversed? So let me please, sum up my question again. If I had to put into 3 buckets, the concerns that you came across and those were met, which are such concerns? If you can just give 2 concerns, 2 veterinary medical science, 2 from the forest management, 2 from the research, followed by the concerns which are not met, but you are optimistic that those would be helped, those would be met, and the concerns which cannot be reversed. I'm sorry for the long question, but I thought it would sum up the whole event.
That's fine. I think, Sanjay, that's a very important question. Thangaraj sir, do you want to go first? Do you want to talk about the conservation concerns, some major conservation concerns that you have come across during your career, and how you have overcome that, maybe with particular reference to this landscape, and then and also some concerns that you would like to get addressed or you want to address in the future, and then how you think it could be taken forward.
Okay, regarding conservation of particularly elephants in that landscape, I mean that Anamalais, it's good. It's good. It's good. During my tenure in the 37 years, I worked in the area. Not only forest department, the concern about the conservation, all NGOs and all researchers are. I know a lot of people's. I interact a lot of researchers from 79 onwards. 79. I start with one Mr. Selva Kumar. I think he's in US. I think. Then Dr. Sumar in those days, 78, 79. We had a lot of interaction. They are all supporting the conservation. The conservation part, the department also take care about the conservation of elephants after 72. Before that, the conservation part is very low. Even the poaching, hunting, not poaching, hunting. The hunting with the what do you call the VIPs, so-called VIPs, go for hunting, take photographs. In those days, still we have a lot of photographs with the guns and other things like that. But after 72, then after 80, whatever it is, after 88, in 80s, the conservation level is going up. The department also have that time the young officers are coming to the department. They are all concerned about the conservation. They work hard. Except few, in all departments and in all departments. Some people are reluctant to follow the things. Most of the officers are work hard for the conservation regarding this wildlife, and mostly the veterinarians in the forest department. They are all work hard. I start from Dr. Krishnamurthy. He is always talking about the elephant. But I short period with Dr. Krishnamurthy. But I travel 25 years with Dr. Manoharan. Yeah, everywhere we are discussing with the researchers or NGOs. We regarding mostly on elephant conservation. Then only other species. Now only they are going for other species. Usually, once elephants and tigers are conserved, then everything will comes under. So the conservation part, the government is good, I think. So far, still a lot of efforts they take. Compared with other areas, particularly in Western Ghats, the government declared from Kanyakumari to that Nilgiris, almost all the areas protected area. Almost 90% of the areas are protected because of the governments, because of the not only with the bureaucrats, the politicians also support the conservation. They are also involved. They are also involved in the conservation part. A lot of ministers and MLAs and MPs. They are also interested and involved in the conservation part. So the conservation part is good.
Yes, thank you so much. As in, yes, I totally agree. Relatively, when it comes to the Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats, the policy, the politicians, the researcher, the conservation individuals and organizations, I think everybody is concerned and they take care of the, the conservation as an agenda. But anything, sir, in your career, from the government point of view, that you feel that those are remain to be challenges now also, and when you worked that time also those were challenges, because of which you could not do much conservation that you may wanted to do as a forest officer, anything which is still act as a concern from a government point of view?
Is nowadays the expansion, not with the project, big projects, not hydroelectric project or hydel projects or irrigation projects, but only thing is the expansion of communication, that is roads, highways and railways. All are nowadays they are a little bit expand. Single track is converted to double track. The meter gauge is converted to broad gauge. They are expand. That is a problem in conservation. Lot of kills in road kills, railway train accidents is happening today. Not with the electrification or poaching or hunting. Only these accidents are more concerned about the conservation. So we have to think otherwise. The communication methods, mode of communication should be changed a little bit in a phased manner, not immediately or within not 10 years. It's a phased manner. They can change the mode of transport. That only help the conservation.
I'm not an expert, but once my dog started putting on weight, and my veterinary doctor has recommended me to give food after measuring, and I was heartbroken. But he said the minimal is more, and it took a while for me to understand. So this could be appropriate at this stage, I guess. How much expansion we want, we don't know. So with that, may I ask Dr. Sreedhar or Dr. Manoharan to take up the question next?
So
Yeah,
just, sir, go ahead.
This is about veterinary expertise, right?
Yes, sir. So I want to know the challenges that were there, and you would have managed to take care of those challenges in your working experience of 3 to 4 decades, and the challenges which still remain challenged, but you're optimistic that those would be taken care in the future. For example, you talked about the standing sedation, and the use of the drugs, which were not there 20, 30 years back. Now it has been evolved, and that is helping a lot in mitigation. So likewise, there are certain challenges which are not met yet, and you're not optimistic about it. So if you have to put into 3 buckets from a veterinary and a medical point of view, what could be those concerns?
Yes, Mr. Sanjay. First, I would like to thank Mr. Thangaraj Panneerselvam sir also. As he told, my travel with him, he told he traveled with me, but I will say I traveled with him to know initially, the veterinary science. If you know, Mr. Sanjay, when I joined, in late 70s, I studied my BVSc from Madras Veterinary College, late 70s. The topics covered were mostly livestock oriented. It was livestock animal husbandry, economics, treatment, diseases of mostly the domesticated animals or the livestock, domesticated livestock. Though there were one course was offered about wild animals. Only one course was offered, and the teachers were not completely exposed. So normally we used to simulate the models, you simulate horse with elephant, a horse with rhinoceros, a cattle with wild gar, or sheep and goat with the deer, pig with the pig, dogs with this thing, cat with the tigers. Like that, we used to extrapolate the knowledge. That was the case actually. And then the pastime, the old-time veterinarians, majority of them, they have learned from their own. Like Dr. Krishnamurti, that is why still he is revered. When he wanted to compute diet for elephant, from where you will compute diet? You have to have a lot of tradition knowledge here. You need to have a lot of information. And when you are computing something, if it is going to end up with diarrhea, that on a big animal like elephant, then you do not know what to do, what to give, where to treat, who will. Those days, communication was very less, na? So
Yes.
great efforts, I will say, my seniors took great efforts, and as he told, Mr. Thangaraj sir told, we took lot of initiatives, lot of trials actually to understand the biology, to understand the anatomy, to understand the digestive system. And today we definitely, as you are telling today, the definitely it is a better profession where almost all the universities throughout the country, you take it from me, throughout the country, IVRA or the court. Now you have separate ministry. Those days it was attached. There was no separate ministry for animal husbandry. Now every state has got a separate ministry for animal husbandry, separate minister for taking care of animal husbandry, milk and wildlife. So that itself shows the concern, not only at official level, but also not only at bureaucratic level, but also at the political level. So we have all the pillars of the democracy taking care of judiciary also. They are very concerned actually. Where there is a lack, it is the duty of the government to inculcate the knowledge to the veterinarian. You cannot expect a regular veterinarian to understand so many species here, right from rat to elephant. Variety of it's one of the toughest. I remember during my college days when a neurosurgeon, famous neurosurgeon, Dr. Ramamurthy, the world renowned neurosurgeon. He used to come to our college to give lecture on neurology. He used to say veterinarian is the best person because he opens the skull of a rat, skull of a frog to skull of an elephant. And I only open the human brain, and which is already big now because these animals have a variety of sizes, and where do they placed and the communication system, all those things are different. So they he shown that. Now from that stage, Mr. Sanjay, we have come to a very good stage now where the science and technology has developed a lot of research, lot of money has been pushed in, and almost all the veterinary colleges, now we have separate university. Previously, when I joined, it was attached to Agriculture University. We used to have Agriculture University in which veterinary college is part of it. Now, almost throughout the country, we have separate animal husbandry universities, veterinary universities, where it caters to the needs of all types of animal, whether it's domesticated or in free-ranging conditions. That is one. So there are all colleges have got separate courses on wildlife, one year or 2 year courses on that, even during UG period, and there are separate courses on PG also. And the veterinarians show keen interest to pursue their career in uh, wildlife medicine also. And one more thing, Mr. Sanjay, there are many universities have signed MOU with other countries, many countries. Like I know Madras Veterinary College has signed MOU with six or seven different universities across the world, and the veterinarians at undergraduate level, postgraduate level, they visit the college and they travel along the entire state for various reasons, getting exposed to various things. Likewise, the veterinarians from Madras Veterinary College goes to different countries and getting exposed to on various fields. And the DNA profiling, biotechnology, the laboratory techniques, and really the lab techniques have gone far and high. You will wonder if I say the COVID vaccine, where it was initiated, who did the COVID vaccine? It was a veterinarian, and they were able to immediately. And One Health, we have this One Health program now. Throughout the world. We have this One Health program. One Health mainly depend on the vet's knowledge actually, because majority of the diseases emerging from the wildlife, majority of the diseases emerging from the other life forms. The other life forms are being treated by the veterinarians. So it is not only the great potential, but the veterinarians also are now aware of these situations. Definitely, there is a tremendous leap in their knowledge, tremendous leap in their wisdom, and tremendous knowledge available in our country actually. And this One Health program, and then the science and technology, which is available to the country, to the veterinarians in the various universities, taking us forward. But when I joined, it was not there, as I told. But still, we have one concern. If you want me to tell, okay, sir, everything is fine, but still, I have not found that kind of wisdom, or that kind of knowledge, that kind of when it comes to wildlife. When it comes to wildlife in free-ranging condition, probably you will not find many, because it is one challenging field. You take it from me, that it is one challenging field where you need to understand many other things. simple extrapolation may not be sufficient. But now the number is coming, number is regularly increasing. More and more veterinarians, more and men and women, both are coming forward. I always appreciate, I wonder, I encourage them. It is one passion once you understand this thing. And then postmortem, I tell you, yet another thing, we always think of, this thing, postmortem and the postmortem techniques and the sample processing, diagnostic levels, the diagnostic facilities in the country available. It has gone really, really good here. We are able to pin your DNA right from viral detection to bacterial detection to parasitic detection to DNA profiling. All fields of veterinary science has improved a lot. So that I would like to say. But we need to have more, some support we need from the government also. Monetarily, sometime, a regular veterinarian may have a practice. I tell you, there's one concern when sometimes veterinarians may not opt to come to wildlife because a regular veterinarian, otherwise in Bangalore city, I know there are very many pet clinics. You go to a pet clinic, the veterinarian will be very busy. Very busy. His contacts are totally different, and his style of living is totally different. Whereas wildlife veterinarian is totally different. So probably I feel that if he is a government veterinarian, some monetary support can be thought of, and then drugs availability. We have only, I am telling you only, there are 4 types of drugs, like I told you 4, but to my counterparts in other parts of the world, they use, very many varieties of drug, very many varieties of safe drugs, which is accessible to them. With many minimum dose, they're able to, sedate, tranquilize, immobilize, anesthetize an animal. So I will say this, I think, but the scope is really good. The ambience looks really, really good from the veterinarian perspective. I will say the ambience looks very, very good. Actually, we can look forward for a very positive future.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr.
Sanjay, I know we are running out of time, so I'm going to just try and keep my answer very short. But see, one thing that I have really felt, been a concern. So listening to, a lot of the other people fairly most, or largely senior in conservation biology, is the lack of exposure that they received as when they were our age, for instance, particularly with reference to interacting with peers from other parts of the country or the world. I think that way a lot of the concerns as an early career conservation biologist has been addressed today. So that has helped us improve our contributions to the field also in various ways, where you have everything open now. You can collaborate with anyone. If I need to do some veterinary aspect done, it's just the matter of a phone call for me to just reach out to Dr. Manoharan and say that, sir, I want to do this and this needs to be rectified, as compared to say the 70s and 80s when people had to write letters and wait for that. But that's a very simple thing. If you largely ask me about a conservation concern for Asian elephants and whether I'm positive about it and what needs to be done towards that, I think one major challenge has been arresting drastic, large-scale land use changes, and I don't think it is something that can be changed or something that can be addressed overnight. It's going to be a hell of a lot of trouble to do that. Particularly because there is huge developmental need in this country, and to meet that, we have to ensure that a lot of things are sort of balanced. I wouldn't say compromised, but balanced. But that said, there are still minor things that can still be done, which continue to be a conservation concern to me. And just to cite an example, if you take the Anamalais, for instance, one point that I emphasized upon was the vast extent of plantation. So you have about 250 square kilometers of the Anamalais as tea and cardamom plantations in Munnar, another 220 in Valparai, another 150 in Neliampati. So if you put together all of this, out of the 6,000 odd square kilometers of the Anamalais, you have about 700 square kilometers of commercial plantations. And today, there have been positive changes towards sort of restoring back these areas into natural habitats where the government-owned commercial plantations, for instance, the Tamil Nadu Tea Corporation, the TANTI, has handed over a major chunk of their area to the forest department, has now been added to the buffer of the tiger reserve. And I feel this is a good conservation model because these areas particularly, and these are enclaves within a large network of protected areas. So when these areas can slowly be added to the buffers of the tiger reserves, and those commercial plantations gradually removed, not overnight, and restored back to its native state, where we're not talking about mass afforestation programs here, but scientific restoration, where you would only plant batch by batch with native species that are native to those areas through seed stocks raised from those areas. So, and this is, like I said, I'm just emphasizing the fact that this is not an overnight process, because this is probably going to take 25, 30, 50 years for you to start seeing results. But the fact that these areas can slowly be added to the reserve within a matter of days, weeks, months, makes it a pressing conservation need. And I'm also, while this remains as a concern, I'm also hopeful that the little steps that the government has taken towards this direction is really promising. So I guess if this sets as an example, then there are various other landscapes across the Western Ghats, across Eastern Ghats, across Northeast India, where you could possibly add commercial plantations that are not as well maintained as the other plantations, slowly getting abandoned and so on into adjoining protected areas, thereby expanding our existing network of protected areas. So in some sense, the larger goal is to rewild India.
Absolutely. I totally agree, because recently I visited Kaziranga Golaghat landscape, and there are a couple of tea estate plants which are abandoned, which are like a small land, like a 2 square kilometer or 4 kilometer square, but it's still important when it is adjoining to the forest patches, and that itself has a significant value when it is adjoining to the two forest patches. So I totally agree. I'm sorry. May I take a permission from all three of you if I can just quickly ask 3-4 questions? I know we are running out of time, but I think the audience has stayed back. And the interesting part is a lot of audience go back to the YouTube and see the videos, because not everyone able to join the live, because of various reasons and a time difference. So may I request for another 5-7 minutes and ask very quick questions?
Sure, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. So there is one thing that has been mentioned about use of biological forces for the mitigation, like using the cookies, to various aspects. And one term used very nicely, I think by Dr. Manoharan is the engineering, the forest engineering, something like that he used. So can you just share? I know there are a lot of advantages of using biological forces for mitigation, but this is very academic. Just to want to understand what could be the limitations of these, because somewhere I read, which says that the wild elephants also get accustomed to the captive. So is there any merit in this? Would you like to elaborate? Anybody of you? Can I repeat my question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're using gunkeys for conflict mitigation, like let's say there is a elephant which is identified as a conflict, and we are taking help of the gunky elephants, captive elephants, to chase or drive the elephant back into the forest. Or there is a situation like a flood in Assam, which is a yearly phenomenon, where the elephants are used to provide the ration inside the anti-poaching camps, because the work still has to undergo in terms of patrolling. So in such instances, there is an obvious merit of using elephants like biological forces for the mitigation purposes. Are there any limitations? Because I read somewhere that eventually the wild elephants get used to the captive elephants, and it may not serve its own purpose in the mitigation. Is there any merit in this argument?
Yes, there are, I will tell you very interesting stories. You know, during there was a question by this thing. The whole program will not end without the mention of Kalim and Kalpana. Kalim and there is one question from Hari Verma.
Hari Ram.
So yeah, I'll tell you, Thangaraj also knows that, because when we are trying to capture Kalpana, that is because we captured it during 2004, where when Kalpana Chawla crashed down. So that day, this female elephant was captured. So we have named it as Kalpana Chawla actually. So it was named Kalpana because we want to just put up, because that was one of the first females probably in the country captured, because capturing a female from the wild is slightly tricky, you know, the pregnancy difficult aspect, and the drug transplantation will carry all those things are there. So drugging a pregnant elephant is different, and finding out whether it's pregnant is also different in the wild. So we captured this thing. What happened was, I tell you, you were telling biological force, na? We all were female heads. So we used our kumkis, all good kumkis, na, Kalim and this thing. And they went along with the herd. 5-6 days, our kumkis were not seen. They went along with the herd. And we have to summon back our kumkis. We thought we were happy they were driving them deep into the forest. We thought that. They went along with the females, and they brought all the members out actually. They were bringing the females were also accounted with our kumkis, all males, you know, bulls, and so 1 or 2 were must also. They were early must, and then they all brought the entire herd out. These are all, I'm just telling in the lighter vein, but you know, but still I tell you, using kumkis, using biological, it need not be a male also. Many times it can be a female also. It is gentle. See, your communication to the elephant, what you want to convey. As I told you, human beings are not completely programmed. No? Everybody is programmed very differently. So very difficult for you to convey goodness or badness. And whatever you convey, how it is going to, you know, accepted by the wild elephant herd is also questionable. Whereas if you have a trained elephant through which you can convey the message, you keep quiet. And then you take it from me, the results are long-term. It is not short-term results. You will have a long-term result. You kumkis go, drive them back, and come and stand out for some time. And then if they don't come out, they're taken away. See, this is the message. Okay, the kumkis come here to say that this is not the place for you. They will go back. They stand for some time, then it is taken away. Now you have your own path, your own way of living. That is, it has to be gentle. It has to be gentle, slow. You should. Patience is the key word. When you want to deal with elephants, patience is the key word. You don't have the patience. It takes every time. If you would have seen many times these elephants foraging in the wild. When they want to take a direction, it will take some time for the elephant. Which direction I want to move? Morning I am here. Afternoon I want to be somewhere. But the somewhere is where. It will take some time for the matriarch or the leader or for the herd to decide. It takes time. In case of driving or guiding or putting the animal back to forest area, all these things are lost. You are forcing the animal to take the decision, which they are not tuned. Completely, they are not tuned. So where to run, they may not know. So immediately you drive them, you think that that is the right direction. You put cracker there, you make sound here, you put jeep there, tracker there, so many things, and they are not able to comprehend things. Come to analysis, come to take a decision. That's why I tell you, biological force will not, even if you force a kumki, it will not do that. It understands the problem of its own cousins in the wild. It will be slow, which will be known by the Mahout and Kavadi, which will be known by the camp managers. You give time. That is why I tell you biological force. Wherever it is possible, kindly use biological force. You have to be steady. We made the damages. We means the human society have made a lot of changes. I won't say damages. We have made a lot of changes. Maybe for goodness of people. It may be for human centric. Many times we may not know. I know there are very good decisions taken by bureaucrats, politicians, and so many others. The interdepartmental people, so many others have taken very good decisions. So the decisions which we feel bad now may not be done, wantonly, intentionally. Maybe they are not aware of it. Maybe without their knowledge. At those days, they did not think that these much of changes will happen. I'm only using the word changes. Damages, catastrophe, bad, I don't want to just use. changes which we do not know. So now you want to, again, what do you think is good? If you want to do what you think is good, that should be done by biological force. I may think differently, but when I tell somebody to do that, he will think in a different way and he will execute it in a very different way. So the best way should be leave it to the biological force wherever it is possible. And if you once you taste the success, we have tasted success. Me, Dr. Sreedhar, Thangaraj Panneerselvam, Mr. Prathangaraj, we have seen success. You simply go and put these animals there. First day they will come out and see, but when they see people with the elephant and they move into the animal, they simply move back. When they move, they come back. That is the message. Okay, you don't want to be here. This is not my territory. I may have to go back. And they move, they also move. That is the gentle messages. That's what I try to say, Mr. Sanjay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The next question I would like to ask is, I think either of you quoted that, when it comes to the electrical lines, there has been a really good teamwork at Anamalais. So I wanted to ask, the other part of Tamil Nadu, or for that matter, even the rest of the states, is there any kind of attempt like this where all the stakeholders are coming together when there is any kind of maintenance or realignment of the electrical wiring which is happening, or any example that you would like to cite or quote? This is purely academic, and would love to know if this has been followed everywhere or it's only the phenomena restricted to certain landscapes like Anamalais.
Not necessarily, Sanjay. Just to add to that, there's actually an NGT order which specify the minimum height at which electric lines has to be when they pass through forested areas, irrespective of protected area or not. And like Dr. Manoharan said, in the Anamalais, this has been fairly well maintained. And in most other areas, at least the Western Ghats, in most parts of South India, we usually see that this has not been so much of a challenge, unless you have some illegal lines drawn from the high tension lines to sort of combat, rather mitigate wildlife conflict, or deliberate attempts to kill wild boar and so on, killing, in turn collaterally damaging or collaterally killing elephants and so on. Otherwise, it's been fairly well done. But at least on paper, there are clear instructions as to what the minimum heights should be. And even if you have transformer units, there is a minimum height at which those transformer units have to be, and that they should be fenced and inaccessible to wildlife, and so on. In fact, an even more important thing to do in this context would be so this is with particular reference to protected areas, but considering the fact that most of our wildlife species, particularly with reference to elephants, considering they go extensively through human habitations, crop areas and plantations and so on, where you tend to have low-lying wires. I think it is, in the longer run, one thing to do. I mean, of course, the idealistic way of doing this would be to make all of this underground, but I think it's going to probably take a few more years or decades to completely make all our electric lines well insulated and underground. But at least in elephant movement areas, based on previous information about elephant direct sighting locations, there could be periodic patrols of those areas to identify low-lying wires, high tension wires, or low-lying transformers, and clear instructions being passed on from the forest department to line departments stating that this needs to be rectified with immediate effect. And that, I think, to a greater extent could also, there are instances where elephants come into contact with trees that are, for further contacting with high tension wires and then getting electrocuted and killed. So such issues could then be addressed if there are regular patrols by the wildlife department, and then there are coordination meetings with the line departments. And if you actually look at the human leopard conflict management guidelines by the Maharashtra Forest Department, there's clear instruction as to how different departments, the public works department, electricity department, all these departments need to work together for conflict mitigation. So in the light of that, I think something, with particular relevance to elephants could possibly be drafted going forward.
Right. That's very great level of information you share. Just one leading question to that. There has been so many crises and challenges, and there's immense amount of work is happening. There is a lot of trial and error. Not every time things work out, but things like this, how often they are communicated, like what you shared, about the different stakeholders, different departments are coming together towards doing something, and that's also practice on the ground. Maintenance is always the key, and when it comes to the government, the bureaucracy, it's always one of the challenges, the maintenance, which I'm sure that we also need to appreciate that we are the second largest populated country. It's very difficult. Having said that, such kind of success story, are those communicated at a mass level in your experience? Like, these are such a beautiful insights. I feel nice and proud listening. Are these communicated to mass at, let's say, regional language newspapers or places like this where these success stories are shared?
I'm not too sure if that's done that often. It's very, whether we like it or not, positive stories, anecdotes, and experiences are seldom reported, and get the relatively less highlight than their, the other side of the spectrum. But I think, like you rightly said, it is important that some of these success stories, some of these positive anecdotes and so on actually go out there for the greater commons, that this further inspires people to actually bring about changes to, existing system in the other parts.
Right. No, but there's one interesting thing. There's a new channel that's come which position themselves as a positive news storyteller or something like that. So that's a good start, I guess, and we should do that often. There's one fleeting reference made about slipper operation in context of the railways. Can you please elaborate? I think Dr. Manoharan has mentioned that slipper operation in the context of railways. I was just...
No, that was the sleeper, the railway sleeper. Mr. Thangaraj was actually indicating that.
Okay.
Yes, sleeper operations only during long ago. That's during up to 70s. It was there. They cut lot of mature trees, big trees in the rainforest, like Mesua and Hopia, then Calophyllum. Like that, they converted as sleepers. Olden days, they are using the wood only for sleepers. Nowadays, they change all the.
Okay.
It's a very big conservation. They change into steel. Then after that, nowadays they change to concrete sleepers. That's what I want to tell.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's just again, I would like to say this, and I would like to conclude the event. It's almost like, and I'm sorry, I'm repeating on the cost of repeating because I'm a little excited. I felt like I've been to Anamalais. I've been to Anamalais, but I kind of gone into the flashback, and it sounds a little dramatic, but also understood the various aspects. Almost every word which is coming out is full of wisdom, full of insights, and it's like in just 1 hour power pack session where we get to understand the veterinary aspect, the wildlife aspect, the research aspect, the bureaucracy, the policy level changes, the use of cookies then and now. It's like it's a lot of learning in just 1.5 hours, and I really thank to every panelist. Thank you, Dr. Thangarajan, Mr. Thangarajan. Thank you, Dr. Manoharan, and thank you, Dr. Sreedhar, for your time, and thank you for entertaining all the questions, even it has been too late. And yes, I think there are many remarks which and thank you so much for making it so natural, because I hated to intervene. It was going so smooth. I was just enjoying taking backseat and listening to everything what has been said. And thank you so much, and we would love to invite you again, and with a similar aspect maybe, because We have been doing this for many years, and we want to see it after a couple of years, what are the changes happening, and it would be lovely to interact with all of you again. Thank you so much, and thank you, audience, for being patient and listening to the conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay, for wonderfully moderating the session, and thanks to Friends of Elephants for pulling this whole show together. And I think it's not easy to actually keep running it for several years together. And it's a fantastic job that you guys have really managed to pull together. So hats off to that, and special thanks to you, Ananya, all of you, for pulling together today's event in particular and wonderfully hosting it and moderating it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Friends of Elephants. Sanjay, I just wish you all the very best. Thank you, Dr. Sreedhar. Thank you, my dear friend, Mr. Thangaraj Panneerselvam. Thank you, all the participants. Though we are not able to completely answer your questions, as Sanjay has told, probably in some other occasion, we'll try to address all your questions.
Thank you.
In fact, sir, you have attended all the questions.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.